Hey fellow explorers, it's me, Mario, and today I won't say my usual words. Let's talk a bit about, or today we're going to take a quick look at, because today's video won't be fast, and we won't be talking about a single asset. I'm going to talk about a broad topic this time around. Recently, I found myself a bit down on Arnak, not because of the game itself, but because I've been playing it too much and I've been introducing new friends to it with my physical copy, etc. etc. So I found myself not able to play online enough and not willing to do so. So I took a step back and decided to, give some justice to the game, even though I'm not playing it right now, and do a video about something that should interest both veterans and beginners alike, which is talking about the three main stages that you can find in an Arnak game, well, in each and every Euro game actually. So the early game, the mid game, and the late game. Today we're going to talk about the early game, which is the most important one, and even though sometimes it might seem like it's scripted, it's not, for a few reasons we're going to take a look at later on. So first off, what is the early game? The early game is the first round mainly. I mean, sometimes you can talk about the second round as it was still the early game, but the first round of the game is really the early game. It's where you put the basis out for your engine. So it's really the most important part of the game, in my opinion, along with probably late game. Like the mid game, often enough you have already some decent plans, and yeah, you have a lot of tactical grabs you can do and you can pivot a bit, but to me the most important part is the early game. Like, it's the one that more than anything else it's going to determine if you're going to have a good game or a bad one. um, it doesn't mean you're going to win, by the way, of course, otherwise it would be boring. But it would mean you're still into the game. Like sometimes, playing Arnak, you can start off and you kind of already know, if you're a long time player like myself, you already know you're pretty much out of the game right off the bat. Sometimes this happens. It's not common, and it's because you made some mistake, not because of the game, and it feels bad. So I want to focus on the early game because I think that everybody should be able to play a whole game or not feeling like they could win. And I think that the first round is the most important to make you sure you can play for the win. Not make you sure you're going to win or you're going to lose, but make sure you're going to compete. So, what is the most important thing you should look at? Um, you are going to look at building up a good base for your economy, basically. So you don't really look at making points on the first round, even though since Arnak it's a fast game, you're already willing to take good trades for points early on. Still, it's better to focus more on economy. So you want to take good assets right from the start. Like, you already want to take good conversions, of course, like using fear cards on 10 sides, etc. But you really want to get some, let's call them permanent assets. So some assets that are going to give you value throughout the whole game. And I'm mainly talking about items and assistance. They provide incremental value that's going to be very good through the whole game. So those are the main assets I'm looking at on the first round. But you're not only looking at getting good assets. As we're going to see, there is one other thing that it's really important right off the bat, in my opinion, and it's on par with getting permanent assets, and that's getting rid of fear cards. Getting rid of the fear cards, I think I'm going a bit ahead of myself here. Probably it's better to talk about the permanent assets first, but whatever. This video won't be quick, and I already put out the disclaimer. So, why is removing a fear card so great on the first round? Because if you could take a look at what impact it has on the game, basically you're unlocking two hand slots, because in at least two subsequent rounds you're not going to draw into the fear cards you removed on the first round. So you're unlocking two more card slots for yourself, since later on fear cards are worth nothing in your end. Like, sometimes you can get lucky, and I say lucky because I mean, it's not that often that you're going to get the chance to use them, but sometimes you might get a guardian that will let you discard a card or discard a boot, and you're going to be happy with it. Sometimes on the Snake Cider Temple you can use two boots to go here, but you're not guaranteed to do so. So taking away a fear cards from your deck on the first round is really important. It's on par with getting very good items and getting an assistant. With that said, since we have two main objectives on the first round, which are getting items and getting an assistant, what do I look at the most on my first action? Like, often enough when I'm the first player, I like to grab either the tablets on the Snake Cider Temple or the arrow on the other side of the temple. Let's take a quick look at that, shall we? So it's an arrow over here, and it's tablets over here. They are the two things I'm looking at the most, because if I get those, it means that I can take this step and I'm going to get a coin, and I have a decent shot at getting an assistant by getting a jewel on my second action. Actually, let's talk a bit about what may come up in different player counts, because in two players this is the action that I like the most while I'm the first player. But when you're playing in three, or even better in four player, your starting resources are going to matter a lot. So when you're the first or the third player, you're going to get 2 coins, which is pretty amazing. And when you're the fourth one, you're going to get 2 compasses. So exploration would be really good for you right from the starting round. So two of the main things that should orient your plan for the first round are for sure the player count, and subsequently your position in the player round turn, and so your starting resources mainly, and what was I saying? Yeah, the turn order and the starting cards that you get. Like, if you get 2 fear cards, going to 2 10 sides is great, while if you get a starting hand that comprises only 1 fear card, then getting an exploration in isn't bad if you're not the starting player. Like here, I'm the starting player, I have 2 coins, I have 0 compasses. Yeah, I might use the fear card to get 2 compasses and then go exploring, but that doesn't look great to me most of the time. Even though it's still on par with the other options, since if you don't have 2 fear cards, you're not forced to go on 10 sides. So what should orient your first choice are always your starting resources, which are comprised of the resources from your turn order position and your starting cards. With 2 fears, you most likely will go for 10 sides, but depending on your turn order position, that might not be true either. So those are the most important things to look at. Then, what about the 10th level sides actions? Again, I would like to take either the tablets or the arrow if I'm the starting player, just because I know that I won't go exploring, most probably, just to use my starting resources at their best. And I will try to get 1 step to get an extra coin, and again, to keep open the chance to get an assistant. Especially if this one is out, that's going to be my go-to opening most of the time. Even if I don't get the jewel, I might still get the arrow and take the second step, which is going to give me a reward, and the coin is of course amazing, and 2 coins. So that means that I will get a lot of coins out of those steps, and I will be able to purchase some good items. So those are 2 of my favorite openings. The other move that I'm looking at the most are the 2 coins. Like exchanging one fear card for 2 coins on the starting round is going to be amazing. It means that I will probably get at least 2 items, sometimes even 3 of them, and that's setting yourself up for a great second round. So this is the second action I'm looking at the most. In 2 players, from what I saw, I mean, I have a limited experience in 2 player games. I think that I've done like a dozen of them or some. Uh, it's not a dozen as a beginner though. Remember that I've been playing for a while at 3 players, so I think that even though I had to learn how to play in 2 player, I had already a good grasp on the game. So from what I saw, what happened was that the first player went for tablets and jewel to get an assistant, and the second one went for 2 coins and 2 compasses most of the time. But sometimes, if this one is out, especially, and if you're 2 players, if the first one goes for 2 tablets, the second one, and I did it, can go for the jewel and then might go exploring and still get an assist on the first round. If you can pull it off, that's going to be really great. It's not that easy because you have to get um, another compass, basically, because you're going to get 2 tablets from the idol you're going to trade in, but you have to have an extra compass. And if you're going to explore being the second player, most of the time you're going to need an extra compass from the idol straight up. So if you can pull it out, this is going to upset the first player quite a bit. So sometimes the first player goes for tablets, you go for coins, he goes for a jewel and gets an assistant, and you go for something else. But sometimes you can also like split those 2 spots, and if you're the second player, you're going to have an extra compass, which means you can go exploring and get the assistant. So that's like a good balance when you're playing 2 players. While I like it more when you're 3 players or 4 players, because a lot of things may come up. Like people can go exploring, and a lot of items get more interesting, I think, in 4 players. So again, the main start would be to try to go for an assistant. Another really good one is going for coins. And the third one, which happens a lot if you're late in turn order, I basically never do this when I'm the first player. Well, scrap it. I'm never doing this when I'm the first player. Is going for an early exploration. An early exploration might work out really good for you, because you might still be able to get an assistant while also getting something good, like good conversions out of your compasses. What is going to make me more willing to go for an early exploration? Again, if I'm the fourth player in a 4 player game, that's already pretty good. If I have only 1 fear cards and not 2 of them, that's also something to keep in mind, because it means that I would still be using one of these to get 1 value instead of 2 value, because if you trade a 0 for 2 value, that's pretty good, but if you trade 1 coin for 2 coins, that's not great, of course. So having only 1 fear card in hand might entice me into going for an early exploration. And lastly, the rewards are very important. Like, removing a fear card is great for the reason I've already said, so I mostly go for one of these spots if they're available on the first round. But again, as I said before, if I'm looking at, going for exploration while denying my opponent a step, I might go for a jewel and then go for an exploration grabbing a compass. Because by that way I can still take another step here or here, because either of those spots require an extra compass. And I'm going to use the idol to get either the 2 tablets or the arrow. So the big question on the first round is defeating or not a guardian. I think that more often than not you're not going to defeat it, because it's going to cost you too much. Like an airplane icon will mean paying 2 coins. Many of the guardians require you to pay 2 coins. But sometimes you get exactly what you need, which might be a guardian that you're able to defeat because of the resources you just got. Like sometimes you get a guardian requiring a car and an arrow, and you just got an arrow, or sometimes you get one require an arrow and a tablet, and you just got exactly an arrow and a tablet. So it depends a bit, and it depends also on the reward from the Guardian. If the reward is an exile card, then I might try to go for it. Even though most of the exiling guardians require you to pay coins, I still think it's going to be worth it. So exiling a card is what I like the most out of the starting choices. The compass is good if again I can get a jewel and I can get an assistant with it. Um, I'm pretty sure that I can get an assistant. By the way, if I get a jewel and I have a spare compasses and I have two compasses in my hand, that means that I can go exploring, get a compass, and for sure I'm going to take an assistant, which is going to be very good. Even though it means that I won't be defeating the Guardian, that's fine. All right, I'm going to have an extra fear card, but it seems counterintuitive, but removing a fear card is great at the start, and adding one fear card is not as bad as you might think. I mean, it's still bad, of course, but removing a fear is better than um, how bad it is to add one fear. That's because of how big the deck can be, etc., etc., and it's also because you can make informed choices about it. There are many variables in it, but if you can get an assistant, I will say go for it and ignore the Guardian. My third choice, so my first two would be exile a card and get a compass. My third choice would be take a coin, I think. Coins are really good at premium at on the first round, and being able to get good items is what I'm looking at. That said, it seems like the game is scripted, right? The first guy is going to get either an arrow or two tablets, the second one is going to take coins, the other two are maybe going to go exploring, etc. It's not because of the items. Do you remember? So, one good asset you can get on the first round is an assistant, but another very good asset you should get each and every time on the first round is at least an item. And sometimes the items are so good. I'm looking at you, Airplane, or the dog, or many other ones. Let's take a look at this game. Uh, yeah, here are not that great. But when the starting items are great, the first few turns can get like messy. And by messy, I mean not predictable. Because players have different, perspective on what's good and what's not, different priorities, etc. So, for example, if I'm the first player, I might go for the airplane right in a three-player game at least. I might go for an airplane on my first move. If I have like two funding cards in my hand, I might go for it on my first move. The airplane is just that good, and I know that the third player might get it if I like use my action to go down here. So also the gold penny is very good, and one coin items are generally very good on the first round because you can get pretty much always another item along with them. So getting two items on the first round is also very good. So the items are what makes this game interesting, and I don't think it would be an incredible news to you because I'm writing daily spotlights on items, so I think they are incredibly important to the health of the game. So getting a very good item on the first round is also crazy important. Like also the precision compass might be really good. Sometimes if I'm the first player and there's an incredibly good artifact here, I might go for it. It's very rare, but it can happen with like trader scales, um, or something like that. Like I may get an arrow and then get trader scales, upgrade the arrow to a jewel, take a step here, and get a lot of coins to get good items. So there are some, not many, but some very good artifacts that I might get on the first round. It's very rare though, and I need to be the guy who got free compasses, possibly the fourth player in a four-player game. So yeah, items make everything more interesting. So those are my thoughts on the early game. You should try to get good items into your deck. I wouldn't say the more the better because like the airplane is a three value card. The precision compass is 2, even though it's a bit worse. This one is also worth 3 points. So getting very good items is also very good. Normally, my experience with Arnak that you either come up with a lean deck with some exceptional cards in it, or you go for a fatter deck with more like decent cards. I mean, Golpan is not decent; it's actually actively good, but it's not as good as the airplane. So, with some good cards, like many good cards in it, and when you come up with a fat deck, you can get more fear. Not get. You are alright with keeping more fear cards in your deck, while if you have a lean one, you really want to um, remove fear cards ASAP. So yeah, it depends on a lot of things, but getting good items right from the start, it's amazing, and getting an assistant on the first round is also pretty good. Remember that also taking other steps on the track is also going to be really good, since each reward that you get is a free one, so getting a head start on the track sometimes. So what I'm saying is, don't be like you've already lost the game on the first round if you just took one step here and maybe one item. Because one step here, if the other players didn't take many, you might be able to be the first one jumping over here and getting a free resource, which is exactly as worth as getting an assistant on the first round, actually, if you can get an assistant on the second one, of course. Um, like you're going to be up one resource. So what you're looking at is getting as many resources as possible and investing those resources right off the bat. Like the player who's going to be the best at getting resourcing and investing them early on is going to snowball faster than everybody else. So even though it doesn't appear in the first round that someone who got a lot of items into his deck got an amazing round, he's going to have amazing rounds down the line. So the first round it's still that important. So priorities again are getting an assistant if possible, getting good items. This is actually the opposite. It goes the other way. Get very good items, get an assistant if possible, explore only if it makes sense. So keep in mind, if you don't have to fear cards, that's already decent. If you get free compasses, that's also decent. If you can get a good reward, like exiling a card, or if you have a good plan, like again, getting a compass to get an assistant anyway, or getting a coin to get exactly the item that you want and that the other guys cannot get. It's also pretty important, but pretty much never go exploring if you're the first player, I would say. I would go as far as to say that. Don't go exploring if you're the first player. Pretty much always go exploring if you're the fourth one. Otherwise, take a look at your starting hand and make a plan with them. What you want to do is to start taking a few steps on the track here and get good items. And that's it. I mean, that's going to be so good for your overall strategy that nothing competes with that. It's not true that exploring on the first round is detrimental, it's just that it's trickier, which is why often in two players you just see people going for 10 sides. It's less riskier, but the rewards are there. If you can, like, stop someone from getting an assistant and get it yourself by going exploring, then definitely go for it. So make up a good plan, get a lot of resources, get good items, and get an assistant if possible. That's my plan for the first round. And again, sometimes you should think about how the second round will also shape up. It's not going to be always possible, but it's not bad either. So defeat a guardian only if it makes sense, and the answer is going to be no most of the time, I think, unfortunately, but still getting a fear card is not going to be as bad. Uh, Again, removing one is amazing, getting one is not one of the worst things that can happen to you. So hopefully I will be able to write a decent article about it. We're going to see. Right now I thought that making a video was the easiest way to share my thoughts on the starting round. That's it. More videos and articles to come about the mid game and the late game, and let's see if people are interested in those. So, see you next time.